Hello to all of you beautiful bakers and welcome back to BlueBell Bake. My name is Jordan and I'm your favorite average baker and media maker, and today we are going to be making bread. Not just any bread though. We are going to be using the Great British Bake Off Big Book of Baking, and we're going to be using the perfect soft white sandwich bread recipe. I've never made bread before, but you know, as an amateur baker, there's a first for everything. The only difference with this recipe though, and when I tell you the measurements for the ingredients, you'll find out, is that everything is in the metric system. So what you're going to need for this, if you do make this recipe, you can try to convert it, but that can be a lot of work. So an electric scale is always a good idea to have. And this is a good one because you can change out the units and stuff if you need to. And actually most liquid measuring cups have milliliters on them already, so you should be fine for that, but this is what I used to measure out the ingredients in grams. Speaking of which, here's everything you're going to need for this recipe. 500 grams of strong white bread flour, 1 7-gram sachet of fast action dried yeast, 7 grams of crushed sea salt, 30 grams of unsalted butter, which is melted but not warm. You're also going to need 1 teaspoon of golden syrup, which I'm using honey in this recipe just to make it a little bit sweeter. And then you're also going to need about 325 milliliters of lukewarm milk. So now that you've gathered all of your ingredients, it's time to start making the dough. So I've actually already started the dough because yeast is involved with this recipe. There is time to prove and to rest. So here's how you're going to mix those ingredients to get to this stage. So I used a separate mixing bowl to put all the dry ingredients together. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your flour and then add your yeast and salt into this mixing bowl and mix it together until it is combined completely. Then what I did was I transferred this to BlueBell's mixing bowl with a dough hook attachment, and then I made a little well in the center, and then I added the melted butter, the honey, and the lukewarm milk. And then once those were combined, at least set into the flour mixture, I used the dough hook attachment and we mixed it just until it was completely combined. If you have some dry crumbs and stuff in the bottom of your bowl, what you can do is add a little bit of milk, a tablespoon at a time. Or if you think it's too wet and sticky, you can actually add a little bit of flour, probably about, again, a tablespoon at a time. I first thought that I was going to need to add more flour, but then I did not, because the longer it mixed, the better it combined to where the dough no longer stuck to the sides of the bowl, and I thought it was stretchy enough and looked good. Once all of those ingredients were combined, I let the dough sit just in the mixing bowl for about 5 minutes to rest. In the recipe, this does say this is going to allow the flour to become fully hydrated. Don't really know what that means, but it does explain it in the book if you want to know. The next part is to actually knead the bread a little bit longer. So you can turn the dough out of the bowl and knead it on a counter. I didn't do that. I actually just used my mixer, and on the lowest speed, I kneaded it for about 5 minutes. And then once that is all done and the dough looks soft and it looks kind of elastic, you're going to let the dough rest by covering it with some cling film and letting it sit for an hour. And once you have that, you're finally at the stage of where you need to be to move on to the next step. So what we're gonna do first though, is you can see the dough has risen nicely, which I'm very excited about, and we're gonna punch it down. That was so satisfying. Okay, and then actually before we take it out of the bowl, we're going to lightly flour our work surface. So I'm just gonna be using the same bread flour that I used to mix that bread in the first place. So Paul says that we're gonna knead it for a little bit and then we're going to shape it. I'm just using the heels of my hands while I'm doing this. I didn't know bread could be this squishy. Now I'm going to take a little bit more flour and flour my fingertips, and we're going to kind of just shape the dough into a rectangle. Again, it's in the metric system. He says it should be about 26 by 30 centimeters. Once your dough is the correct size, you're going to roll your dough from one of the short ends and pinch the sides as you go, kind of like what you would do for a Swiss roll. After that, you will take your dough and tuck the sides under and place it into your greased loaf pan. Next, you're going to use your hand to squish the loaf down so it's more of a brick shape instead of a dome. And then you're going to place your loaf into a proving bag or loosely wrap the top in cling film like I did, and then let it rest at room temp for about an hour. Our dough has risen and puffed up very nice, which I was kind of surprised about. I didn't think it was going to happen, but it did. So trust the recipe. But now it's actually time to bake it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the cling film off. While it's doing its second proof, you can preheat your oven to 425 degrees. And we're gonna pop the bread in, let it bake for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to reduce the oven temperature to 350 degrees and bake it for another 20. So first things first though, 425 for 15 minutes. So here is our little loaf. And there's one last step besides popping it out, is that Paul Hollywood suggests that you take some butter and you rub it on the top, and this will keep your crust soft. So let me get a knife. I just have my little butter dish here. Take some. Oh, it's like painting. And that is it. We made bread. Oh my goodness. My very first time I've made bread. I didn't test this recipe before I made this video or anything. I am so happy with the way it turned out. So, and I really, really hope that it turned out well for you too. If it did, let me know in the comments down below. And also don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click that notification bell so you always know when I'm posting. And that is it. So thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, keep on baking.